Coming to paperback and e-readers, Isis Legacy. The sorority secrets from the goddess next door are revealed in this all-new Isis series adventure. Pre-order your copy of Isis Legacy on Amazon.com today. Last week, a white man was arrested and charged with hate crimes after allegedly assaulting 7 Asian women in Manhattan. Now, your 28-year-old Steven Zajonik was arrested last Wednesday in connection with 7 unprovoked assaults on Asian women over the course of 2 hours. And police allege that your Steven Zajonik punched, elbowed, or shoved his victims, and 2 of them had to be hospitalized for the assault perpetrated on them. Now, the police are seeing Steven Zajonik's alleged behavior as another incident as related to the ongoing alleged violence against Asian people. But when I take a critical examination of your Steven Zajonik, he fits right in line with the pattern and profile for beta males that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis. Now, your Steven Zajonik is not originally from Manhattan. No, he originally came from Florida. And it looks like he was raised in a single mother household by his mother. And it was in that household that he allegedly was dealing with mental health issues. However, I believe that your Steven Zajonik was basically raised in a dysfunctional fashion, and that was shown by him having to go out here and go into the United States military, because a lot of beta males oftentimes try to go into the United States military in an effort to try to become better men. Unfortunately, it is their dysfunctional upbringing inside of that single mother household that leads to them having problems in the military, because this is their first time ever dealing with male authority and male authority figures, and because they have a hard time dealing with male authority and male authority figures, they really cannot function in the military. And that was really shown to me because they said that your Zajonik was an Army veteran who served as a private between February 2015 and March 2016, and that really shows me that there was some serious problems with him dealing with male authority, because usually a member of the military, when they're first enlisted, usually does an entire 4-year term. And because this young man could not do an entire 4-year term, that was a bit of a red flag to me, because it showed me that he was having problem with male authority figures such as drill sergeants, and those drill sergeants were noticing some serious issues with him. Now, they say he was never deployed and it was unknown why he left the military, and that was the media trying to spin things because this was a white male, and they really don't want to say that this male was either honorably discharged or dishonorably discharged. And again, that's what happens when you finish your term in the military. You either get an honorable discharge or a dishonorable discharge. But because he didn't finish his term, it's telling me that either he got a Section 8 due to mental health issues, or he was having some sort of other issue, because otherwise he would have stayed in the military and finished his term. Now, your Steven Zajonik, after leaving the military in 2016, went back to his home with his mother, where she alleges he was dealing with mental health issues, and things wound up escalating over the course of 2020, where she went out here and petitioned the court for a no-contact order after he threatened to kill her. Now, this is another thing that beta males have a problem with as they become adults. A lot of times these guys, they cannot really function in the world, and because they can't function in the world when they're living with their parents, many of these men become extremely frustrated. Many of these men become extremely angry, and these explosions that they have inside of the home are just the start of their rage, and him threatening his mother fits right in line with the spectrum of violent behaviors that your beta males participate in due to their frustrations with not being able to function like other men. Because a lot of beta males, they want to go out here and follow the lead of other men. Unfortunately, many of these men don't have the male life skills and don't have the male survival skills to go out here and function. And because these men cannot function, that's where they wind up starting on the road to falling apart. Now, I believe that your Steven Zajanik tried to go out here and tried to become a man in the military. Unfortunately, due to the way he was raised in that single mother household, he did not gain male life skills or male survival skills. And because he did not have male life skills and male survival skills, he did not know how to work with male authority figures. And those male authority figures, such as drill sergeants, noticed his erratic behavior, realized that he was going to be a threat to himself and others in a military situation, and they decided that there was nothing else they could place him in, because usually, like Mr. Superboy says, that as a veteran, they usually try to put you in other areas, and he was already a private, so there wasn't much they could do with him. So they probably either Section 8'd him, or they gave him some sort of other type of discharge, and he went back home to his mother, and he was coming back home frustrated and angry, and this was leading to what they called his mental health episodes. But again, I believe those episodes were really his frustration with not being able to navigate life in the world. Now, after 2020, when his mother threw him out of her home, your Steven Zajanik wound up here in New York City. And once he wound up here in New York City, he was homeless and drifting. And as he was drifting, he was going out here, possibly as I see it, simmering and boiling in anger for some time. And according to his mother, he wanted to learn Japanese, but I believe he was frustrated because he possibly wanted to go out here and approach an Asian woman and wanted to try to talk to an Asian woman. Unfortunately, he had really poor life skills and social skills, and that's what led to him becoming frustrated and angry because he possibly wanted that relationship with an Asian woman, but then he could not talk to an Asian woman due to his numerous issues as related to the way he was raised, and this is what frustrated him and led to him exploding in this rage, where he wound up attacking 7 Asian women over the course of 2 hours. Now, the police and the media are trying to give your Steven Zajanik a wider berth, as Mr. Superboy would used to say, as related to his story, because I noticed the way they spinned his story. They tried to make him a bit more sympathetic than they have other black perpetrators of these alleged crimes against Asian people. Now, in another incident that took place a couple of weeks ago, a black man followed an Asian woman home and murdered her, and the media went out here and they practically demonized that black man, who was not a foundational black American. But in the case of this white man, they seem to be very sympathetic towards him, and they seem to spin the story in an effort to try to make him extremely sympathetic. So that's something I noticed in a difference as related to the coverage on the story of Steven Zajanik, and it really shows how this so-called trend of anti-Asian violence is somewhat racist, but that's another video, and I'm going to get back on the topic of this one, which is about this beta male who had been a ticking time bomb for some time and practically fell through the cracks because many out here did not really see him as the clear and present danger that he was, because they thought, oh, he's a white man so we'll give him a pass. But giving this man a pass led to a man in crisis traveling from Florida, where he was having problems, to New York, where he created even more problems for all of these Asian women. Because the real problem here was that most people do not want to understand the man crisis going on in this country, and they don't want to understand the man crisis in this country because it means pointing a finger at America's women and holding America's women accountable for the dysfunctional way they have been raising boys. And the way they have been raising boys is creating these beta males who are all across the country. And due to the defective way these boys have been raised by their mothers, who have coddled and sheltered them and made excuses for them, these boys do not know how to function when they enter the adult world, and they don't know how to navigate the adult world. And that is one of the things that leads to some of them winding up having mental health problems, because they're trying to deal with the world from a female perspective. And as they try to deal with the world from a female perspective, where they're used to being accommodated to and coddled, what happens is these men wind up getting frustrated when they're confronted by male authority figures, and they're expected to carry their own weight. Because when these men are expected to be men, these males cannot go out here and do the same work as a man, and they cannot go out here and take accountability for themselves the same way a man can, because they were raised by women to be just like women, and they don't understand how the world works for men. And this is something people really don't understand out here. The world works completely different for men than it does for women, and people have different expectations of men than they do for women. And that is one of the reasons why this man failed in the U.S. military after nearly a year, is that he could not go out here and carry his weight as a man. And that is one of the things that possibly frustrated him and further led to an exacerbation of his serious issues as related to his mental health, and led to him becoming more frustrated and angry and looking to go out here and lash out at people like his mother, who went out here and was trying to deal with this beta male. But the core foundation of his problems really, I believe, started with the way he was raised, because I don't believe that he was just what they call having these mental health episodes. I believe that these episodes of his mental health were due to the dysfunctional way he was raised, like many boys out here who are raised in single mother households. And the way that they're raised leads to them having their mental health deteriorating, because they're trying to function from a female's frame of thinking in a world that expects them to be a man. And when they're asked to do things that meet the standards of a man, these men fall apart. And that's what happened here. This male wound up falling apart, and he fell through the cracks as his mother, after his mother kicked him out. He became homeless. He started drifting, and as he started drifting, he then wanted to go out here and do certain things like talk to Asian women, because he had fixated on them, which is another beta male behavior. And as he fixated on Asian women, he then went out here and attacked all 7 of these Asian women. And this is going to possibly lead to him falling further through the cracks of the mental health system, because what's going to happen is, with many mentally ill people, is they wind up in the criminal justice system. And as they wind up in the criminal justice system, what happens is that these individuals wind up inside of the penitentiary if they are convicted, and they wind up in that penitentiary system where they wind up getting turned out and taken advantage of by guys like Bubba and Tiny. And sadly, that's what happens inside of the prison system to those individuals, because people do not know how to go out here and get these young men the mental health services to deal with their issues. And that's why these men in crisis wind up in a deeper crisis when they wind up inside of that penitentiary system, because inside of that penitentiary system. That's the only place where these individuals get warehoused due to the failures of our mental health system. And sadly, that's possibly going to happen to your Steven Sajonic as related to this incident. But I just find it interesting how this white man was getting a pass from the mainstream media as related to his assaults of Asian women, whereas the black man, who also had mental health issues, was practically painted by the mainstream media as a black brute and was painted as someone who needed to be locked up indefinitely. The white man was, after he was questioned by the police the first time, was actually let go and given the benefit of a doubt as related to being innocent until proven guilty. But the black man was grabbed up off the street and locked up almost immediately. And again, that's really scary because we have a man in crisis, and in either case, they're not getting the help that they need. And that is one of the big problems with America's man crisis, is nobody is acknowledging the clear and present danger that these men are having to society and the clear and present danger they propose to society, because we're not investing resources in these men to deal with their issues. And because we don't deal with their issues, we get to see more and more of these incidents, which is really sad because I predicted we would see more of these incidents. And we're seeing more of these incidents more frequently because we have 2 to 3 generations of these beta males out here. And as each of these ticking time bombs explode, it makes living in society like walking on eggshells, because you never know when you'll step on one of these landmines and possibly wind up in a situation where you wind up either injured or possibly losing your life. And that is why America really needs to acknowledge the man crisis going on in this country, because if we don't acknowledge the man crisis in this country, we're not going to have just isolated incidents. We're going to have nothing but anarchy and violence as these men are not dealt with. And we really need to start working on dealing with these men and trying to do something about America's ongoing man crisis. Now, if you want to learn more about what makes beta males participate in their violent and self-destructive behavior, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis on online ebook sellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to see me do more men's issues videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today.